of what the market is doing, and kind of just keep that in consistent contact with everybody as we're all practicing social distancing here in the virtual age. So we are the virtual pros here with the Nathan Wenzel Dream Home Specialist team. And I brought a guest with me today. This is Mark Addenda with Preferred Mortgage. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Absolutely. And we'll get to Mark in just a second. We'll try to keep it short and sweet today. I think Mark had a great point when we first talked about having him on here, which is kind of the preparation of everything. So getting everything prepared, being prepared for the market, whether it's in its current state, but also into the future too. And so he'll go over kind of some things about what rates are doing and just being prepared in general for whatever the market will throw our way. So as we do with every day, we do a quick recap of the market over the last 24 hours. So we have 47 new listings in the last 24 hours here. And as we talked about yesterday, some of these are some new builds, some new construction that are going on out there. New construction, a lot of times they will cycle in and out their listings so that you can continue to kind of keep it up. It's kind of a trick we use when we're listing property too. We want to, if we ever do a price reduction or anything like that, it'll bring it up to the top of the feed so that people will consistently see it as they're scrolling through their search feed. So kind of what they do on a pretty consistent basis. We have a few more in Rondecoit here, Parsons and Brighton. That one just came up. So different information. So nice property over there. It's actually Brighton with Pittsford schools. Let's go back to just the full single line here so we can take a look. And we got, looks like 4 new ones in Rondecoit. We got several in Pittsford, but I believe these are new builds in here. We got some in Richmond over by Honeyway Lake. We got a few in commercial space and some residential spaces in the city of Rochester and a couple in Webster here too. So we'll go back and take a look at what the price decrease 14, so about similar to yesterday. Back on market 4. Again, that's a good number to have at a lower level. That means that things are going through, properties are going through, they're selling. We have 13 under contract, 25 new pending ones. So it's an active market. Again, we're right in that middle ground of higher end, 100 listings a day, low end with a few from a few weeks ago. About 10 to 15 a day, which was really low, but we're kind of middling that out at this point. I think you'll start to see as the weather gets a little bit nicer, that kind of is a weird kick where people go on and they start wanting to get ready, more prepared to put their house in the market at that point. And I think you'll still see that. Obviously, a little bit, everything's kind of reset and a little bit smaller than what it was, but you'll still see people that need to do something, and we're here to help with the virtual marketing of the property. So going back to preparedness and rates, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you are kind of looking at as far as what the bank is doing and everything, the banks are doing.
Rates are really strong and active right now. I've been lending in the lending business for quite a while now, over since the late 80s. So we're seeing a very dynamic time with lots of products that are out there for first-time home buyers and or obviously people who are seasoned at it. And the one thing that comes up consistently from customer to customer is it's a very emotional process, so they don't realize what goes into the process. So they get a little caught off guard because it's a lot of money to people. It costs money, obviously, to buy a house, and it gets a little overwhelming, and they get excited about being in the house. So the best thing to do is really get prepared and plan out what you want, how much you can afford with someone like me, and then what you really want to buy and what neighborhoods with someone like Nate. And Nate and I have been working together for 6-7 years now and get along quite well and really set expectations for our buyers. So you really want to be prepared with all the proper paperwork and the amount of money you need to close, and that's all disclosed to you up front. And it's just a very important thing because you want to know what to expect financially so that is taken care of when you go to put your offer in.
Awesome. Now, what about rates? How are those working right now? We've spoke a couple times, and you're saying that they're definitely all over the place at the moment. Tell me a little bit about that.
A couple of weeks ago, when all this first hit with the coronavirus, they kind of spiked a little bit, and that's because rates had dropped dramatically prior to that, and the banks had really gotten caught up with a lot of refis, and now they've settled back down into the lower threes, FHA, mid threes, conforming, and so that's you got a lot of buying power with your dollar. And to give it some type of perspective, my parents got a mortgage in 1962, and the interest rate was 4 1/8, and that's back when you made $5,000-6,000 a year. So now people are making that much money a month, and their buying power is actually that much stronger than it was 60 years ago. So it's a great time. I try to put a little bit of perspective because the younger generation is not aware of how good the rates are sometimes, and they got a lot of buying power, and they can actually buy what would be considered their second home because of the affordabilities there. So they're surprised how much they can afford because you're drawing that payment over a 30-year payment, so it really suppresses the payment. So it's a great time to buy. You just got to be ready. And obviously with the corona, there's a lot of people in and out of work right now due to what's going on. And so if you are working and you don't have any worries about being laid off, it's not a big deal to move forward. If you got caught up in the layoffs, we can prepare you so that when you go back to work and get that first paycheck, you can go out and start looking. So in either case, you can get pre-qualified. You cannot close if you're not if you're on unemployment. Let's say you'd have to be working with a full-time W-2 job. So as soon as you get back to work, you can go look.
So let's say, and we've talked about this before on my little program here. We have what's called the COVID-19 Addenda, which essentially is an addenda that goes into the contract that will automatically extend the contract by 30 days in case something like that were to happen. So let's say somebody's in the middle of purchasing something, they get furloughed, for example. So they get furloughed and it's for a 2-week period. How does that work with the banks? I guess my interpretation would be that it probably would still move forward as long as you can prove that you're making income after you go back to work, the same amount of income, right?
Yeah, correct. Typically, when there's a gap of employment, whether it's a couple of weeks, and in some cases, if you've had a solid 2-year history of work, you can have a gap up to 6 months. That's kind of case by case, but a 2, 3, or a month gap is not too difficult to overcome. You just have to have that paycheck that you're back to work. So let's say you got laid off. Let's say you got laid off April 1st, you're going to go back to work May 1st. You've obviously been out of work for a month. And then if you get paid every 2 weeks, so you don't get that first paycheck till, May 12th, you'd have to wait till the 12th to close because we'd have to provide that paycheck, you're back to work. And then there's a verification of employment that, yes, you're back to work and there's no more worry about you getting laid off. I think that's the biggest thing the lenders are concerned about is if you did get laid off once, are you going to get laid off in July if this recovery is not quick? So that's a little, we're in a little bit unknown territory due to the fact we've never really seen this type of stop to the economy, and now we're starting. And so just keep that in mind as you're going through the process so that we're not all caught off guard by the type of industry you're in. And it's a little nebulous. I know that landscapers and things can work, and but there's other positions like Delta Sonic's a good example. They have 2-3 people working every day, but that's it, and they normally have up to 80 people at any given site. So there's a good example of like one person working at a particular business could get a mortgage, and the other person couldn't until they were back until another part of the business was open.
Right.
So just keep that in mind as you are applying and looking. That you know your job and your boss better than anybody, and we can work closely with your employer and see what type of documentation they can give you.
Right. That's a good point. So everything's a case by case basis at this point. It's which is why you need somebody who kind of understands, who's been through this before. I think too, on multiple levels. This is, it's not the first time there's been a market downturn. Everything I think is different. But one thing I think we can all kind of agree on is that at this point, depending on how long this lasts, we have it's definitely been a very the market is almost reset. The real estate market. I think inventory has gone even lower, and there's people that can buy. They're still at the purchasing power, are still out there looking. And as long as those rates stick to where they kind of have been, we still have a good amount of people that can actually purchase. So as opposed to 10 years ago when the rates were up at that 8.5%, 8.5%, and it took them 6 to 12 months to actually come down to where it was actually able to bring on more people into the market. So
rates are. That's the great part of things going on right now. Rates are extremely favorable.
Yeah.
And a lot of purchasing power, make your dollar go further.
Right.
And your payments, it's fixed on the interest side for 30 years. Obviously, your taxes and insurance could go up over that time, but your housing should be pretty stable. Would be the one stable factor as other bills and things come into your life over several years. So Being a homeowner is great. And it is, there is documentation that is needed. And I had someone tell me yesterday I can go in and buy a $50,000 car and I can get financed in about 2 hours. Why does it take so long to buy a house? Well, because it's a piece of property that you're taking 30 years to pay off, not 5. And also there's title and insurance and all kinds of things, underwriting. And it's your home, and there's a lot more regulations to home buying than purchasing a car. So we can close in typically about 45 days from the time we get the accepted offer, sometimes a little quicker if everybody's motivated, and sometimes a little bit longer if the seller needs a little bit more time to move into the new place that they're moving to.
One thing I know Mark's got to go here, but one thing I wanted to show everybody is on the screen here. You can see I always talk about appreciation in the Rochester area. It's not a fast spike at all. It's a very gradual uptick, and you can kind of see that from 17 up to now. Going back to, are you still with us, Mark, or I lost your video? I think something must be going on, technical difficulties with Mark. So. If we did lose him, thank you for jumping on, Mark. And he also had to go off and get on another call. So, but one thing on this screen here, you can kind of see the gradual appreciation, and that's something. Here he is. He's back. That's something that now he sounds like a chipmunk. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but all we're hearing is chipmunk voice. So. Thanks for popping on, Mark. If you want to put your information in on the post for this site, the one that I did either on this video or the one that I put advertising your information, put your information in there. Anybody that has any questions about refinancing, about purchasing, all that stuff, Mark is an excellent resource, and he can go very broad with his products too, since he's a broker. So. Definitely somebody to talk to. Put your information up there if you don't mind. And everybody else have a great week. And thanks again for joining us, Mark. If you're still in chipmunk voice. Okay, no, he's not. All right. All right. Everybody have a great one. We'll see you guys all tomorrow. And we got some good stuff coming up over the next few days too. So everybody have a great week or a great day. And I will speak with everybody tomorrow.